Last weekend, I ran my first in-person race in a very long time. It was a new course for me, but it was also a different kind of setup and a different approach than I normally use for most of my marathons. So how did it all go? It's time for the recap of the Chicagoland Spring Marathon 2021. 26.2 miles, 8 minutes, 57 seconds per mile, 150 beats per minute for the Chicagoland Spring Marathon 2021. It was just absolutely fantastic to get out there and race a real race. I had a bib, there were people, there were cowbells, there was aid stations, all that stuff. Kind of all looked different than what I'm normally used to, but it was a race nonetheless, and I was so thankful to have that opportunity. Now that I'm fully vaccinated and I feel comfortable going to a large public gathering like that, and I'm glad that these events are happening. Yesterday, I put up the video for kind of the race itself, like kind of like the in the moment, what was going on, what I was thinking about as the race was happening. Now I wanted to kind of take a look back and look at things in a little bit more detail, a little bit more critically for a couple of things that I didn't have kind of access to at the time, such as things like my heart rate data, my individual mile splits, that kind of thing. So we'll take a look at all of that. I'm gonna break it up into a couple of categories, and there'll be chapters along the bottom in case you wanna skip ahead or don't like a certain chapter. You can always figure out which one to jump ahead to. So first, let's talk about the course. This was my first time running the Chicagoland Spring Marathon. I thought that this marathon, because it was out in Schaumburg, and Schaumburg, for those of you that aren't kind of like familiar with it, I'm not trying to like, you know, rag on Schaumburg, but it has a reputation of being kind of like just a giant like strip mall. And that's kind of what I thought I was gonna be running in, like just running through like, you know, kind of like corporate parks, like that kind of thing, just like endless mazes of like 4-story office buildings and weird like artificial ponds and stuff like that. And it was like that for like the first couple of miles, but it quickly changed from like, you know, for one point we were running along the frontage road, and so you got like a highway on one side of you, and that part wasn't so great, and I was worried that it was going to be 26 miles of just like concrete. But very quickly after that, we got into Bussey Woods, which is a giant forest preserve in the area. It's actually an area that my running buddy and I have been meaning to check out, because we each see a lot of people from the Chicago area that are running out in that spot and like putting in a lot of good miles, and you see photos and it looks great. But I never put the two things together. I just didn't study the course that well for this race. And so like it was a surprise to me when all of a sudden like we went from like running on a frontage road and like running on a bridge over the highway. All of a sudden I'm just surrounded by trees and I'm in the middle of a field. So that was really nice, a very nice, pleasant surprise. That point, you're not on concrete anymore, you're on asphalt, so it was a little bit nicer. I suppose like if you really wanted to, there are parts where you can kind of like run along the path on the grass, and I think you would still be considered on the course, so that's something that's also an option for you too. And for the most part, it was really nice. Things were really scenic. There are parking lots like all along the course. So it seemed like there was lots of families that were supporting their runners. And so I saw a couple of families like multiple times, but there were just people kind of like everywhere, even though this really wasn't like a huge like spectator type event. I do feel like a lot of the runners that are running this event, that like the average age, I'm guessing, skews a little bit older than some of the bigger races that I see in Chicago. And so I felt like more of like a family event, and that was pretty cool. The only thing I would say that I didn't really like about the course, other than the fact that it was like, there were a couple of hills that I didn't really love. There are parts where you are still, even though you're in the park, you're still kind of near the highway, and like the wind just kind of gets weird. And so there was just certain parts where everywhere else it'd be fine and not windy at all. But then in certain areas, it just got super windy. And I feel like that's probably always like a perpetually windy spot in those certain areas. So, you know, some of the conditions could be challenging if you're running it for a PR. The other thing that I didn't love about this course is, again, mostly because I didn't study the course map, but like, you know, as you're running along, you'd be running and then all of a sudden it's like you hook a right and then you run anywhere between like a couple 100 meters to maybe like even almost a mile, and then you just do like a U-turn and come back. And so you would have these like really different offshoots, and like they would always kind of like meander a little bit. So you never really knew like, am I close to the turn? Do I got a lot more to go? Not that it really matters, it's 26.2. Just run, you know. But on the other hand, it's just like was a weird mental game where I'm like, how much more do I gotta go before I can turn around? Because I really would rather be on the turnaround than on the going out part, for whatever, like psychologically speaking. So those parts weren't the greatest for me, but you know, I think they need a lot of that to make sure that they can get like the 26.2 or the 13.1 for the half marathon that was also going on at the same time. I mean, the nice part about it though is you kind of got to see a lot of the same people again. So like, even though it was a COVID start, like socially distant, they sent off runners every 15 minutes. You had to sign up for like a time slot. It wasn't like a big corral, like a wave of a start. So, you know, there wasn't really a pack that you could run in, but you kind of were, people kind of got into a rhythm with each other. And so you would see some of the same people over and over again. And so that, you know, helped with some of the kind of the camaraderie of the running. I said hi to people like constantly, even people that looked grumpy and didn't feel like, you know, waving to me. I just said hi to everybody. I was just so happy to be out there. Good job, everybody. I'm good. I mean, I don't know. For all I know, these people have been racing, you know, this entire last year. And so they're just probably like, who's this weirdo? But I had a good time with it, and I was just having fun saying hi. And I felt like I had good energy. Hopefully some of that, you know, rubbed off on other people as well. But overall, I did really like the course. There wasn't quite like as many aid stations as I normally see, like at a bigger city race, but I think that there's plenty. And there's porta potties along the course as well. So I didn't need any this time, but you know, there was plenty of those as well. So like, I feel like it's pretty well set up in terms of where everything is and how they're supporting it. And the other thing that I really appreciated is that there was plenty of signage. Now, for the most part, you're just going straight. Every once in a while, there was a turn. Sometimes there was a U-turn, that kind of thing. But even despite that, they would periodically still have other signs to kind of give you confirmation that you're going the right way. There's one kind of like strange part where like the marathoners go this way and the half marathoners go this way, but on the way back, they go a different way. So it's just, there's signs pointing in like all sorts of directions, and it can get a little confusing there. That was the one spot. And I was coming back from the long out and back that I believe all the marathoners and half marathoners were supposed to go on. But she kind of made the turn for this little offshoot, and then I could see her, and she was looking at her phone frantically, like something was wrong. And then after I passed her, it occurred to me that she wasn't sure if she had made the right turn. And then I saw her again passing me in what I believe was way too soon. So I'm not sure she made it all the way out to the turnaround point that she was supposed to hit. I mean, hopefully she did, and I just, you know, you're out there running, sometimes time passes in a kind of a funny way. So I feel like that was the one spot where they could have said like marathon and half marathon, keep going, you know, but other than that, like there was always lots of signs to tell you like, yes, you are in the right spot. And basically anytime I was like, oh, I've been running for a long time, am I still on the right course? Then another sign would kind of appear. And so I feel like they did a really good job with that. For someone like me who always gets lost and who is pretty much always uncertain if they're going the right way, I felt like this was a race that had enough signage. So that's a big plus. And then at the end, like the only the only weird thing or unfortunate thing about it is because there's certain health rules still being enforced. You know, at the end, you know, they kind of like rushed you through the finishing chute. And then, you know, there was lots of people kind of sitting around, like, you know, just resting after they had finished their marathon or their half marathon. But periodically someone would have to come through and kind of like, you know, encourage people to head back to their cars because they couldn't have like hundreds of people like hanging out. So that was kind of unfortunate because, you know, it would have been really nice to have some post-race beers. They didn't have that at this race. This race was like hamburgers and fruit cups, which I didn't really feel like eating either of those. I don't eat hamburgers, but they also did have though ice pops, which was a delightful treat. Because it was hot. It was like, it wasn't temperature, not really that hot. It was like mid 70s, but it was really humid. And I had a lot of stuff on. And so as far as like my vest and all the stuff that I'd carried in it. So I just was really wanting something just ice cold to have. And it was really nice to have that ice pop. I really enjoyed it. All right, so that's the course. Let's talk about the kit. I mentioned how I had the heavy pack on. I was using the Camelback Zephyr, and I had it loaded up for about 6.5 hours of running, thinking that like, you know, I have my first trail race coming up. There's going to be 5,500 feet of elevation gain throughout the 50K, and that's just a lot more than I'm used to. And so I'm thinking that it's going to take me a lot longer than running, like, say, a flat 50K would. And so it's going to be very different. I've done a 50K by myself before, not officially in a race. And I've done like a 30-mile run in the trail before, but that was a very flat, buffed out trail, you know, converted rail line kind of thing. So, you know, this will be my first like trail race. So I'm not sure how long I'm going to be out there, but I filled up the pack with 2 liters of fluid, had some Noon Endurance in there, and then 12 gels, 2 UCANs, 2 Unived Elites, and then 4 Humas, and then 4 Science and Sport. And so I ended up taking all the UCAN, which was nice because it keeps you nice and topped up. I like having those at the beginning of the race. One, because they're the heaviest like packets of gel. So it's nice to get rid of that weight. But also because it has like a slow burning sugar in it. So like I feel like it's not something that's going to get me too amped up too soon. Then I had the Univeds, which have a lot of electrolytes in them. So like I feel like that also keeps me topped up and also keeps me from getting too amped up too soon. And after I'd taken those, then I was switching back and forth between the Humas, which have a lot of potassium and sodium, and then the Science and Sport, which had a lot of sugar and caffeine. So I feel like that was like a good combination to have. No stomach problems at all. So I felt good about that, even though it was a much hotter day. And then as far as the liquids go, when I just sipped on the Noon Endurance just whenever I felt like it. If I felt thirsty, I didn't care like how much I had spaced it apart. So I just sipped on it, and I had a ton left at the end. So like, I think the 2 liters is probably going to be fine. But like, as far as the load was concerned, like everything fit pretty well. It felt heavy. It felt comfortable, and it was shaking around, but not too much. Everything still felt pretty snug, and nothing caused chafing. I was worried because I wore a singlet that, you know, some of the straps might start doing some rubbing. And I think I did get a little bit of chafing right up here. I'm feeling a little bit, it almost feels like I got a real bad bug bite right up here. But, you know, other than that, everything feels great as far as the pack went. You know, everything was easily reachable, and it held my phone as well as a hat in case I needed it. And my sunglasses, you know, they were bouncing around in there. And I felt like I was constantly shoving them back in. But, you know, I never dropped them. So they did their job just fine. And I felt like I finally have like the straps like adjusted vertically in the right way on that pack. So that way it kind of fits, and I could just, you know, like tug on the cinch straps and keep everything nice and secure. So that's the pack I'm going to go with. I'm absolutely loving it. In terms of, we talked a little bit about clothes. In terms of like the tank, I wore the Tracksmith tank, and that worked out really well. It kept me nice and cool, enough underneath to keep the pack from causing any chafing up front. So that's really all I cared about for the singlet, and it just fit well, and I felt like it didn't get too clammy on me. So I like that one. I'll probably race in that one. And then for the pants, I wore a 7-inch Path Project short, and I think that was the right one. I went with the 7-inch today on that race because I was thinking when I'm going through the woods, there could be like brush and stuff. And so like, you know, having a little bit more to cover the legs might be beneficial. But what I also liked about it is that particular set of pants has a lot of pockets. So I did put my car keys in the back pocket, like behind normally where you would put your phone. But I put my car key back there, and that way I kept it, you know, it was least likely to bounce. And then the big, like regular pockets that are on the side, as I ate a gel, I would put it in those pockets. So they were really easy to get into, and also easy to reach into again, because if I saw an aid station, then I would reach in, grab my empties, and then toss them in the garbage. So I felt like that really worked out well, because in the pack, there's like a little pocket you can use, but if I'm bringing like 12 gels, that little pocket's not going to be big enough to hold all that garbage. So I need bigger pockets, so the pants pockets are going to work. I also have like a 5-inch Path Project short, so I will probably bring those with me race weekend and make a last minute decision. Either way, it's going to be a Path Project short just because those pockets are nice and big, and they have zippers that I like, that I feel like I can use easily while I'm running. So that way, if I have garbage and I'm worried about, I don't want it to accidentally fall out, I could zip it up, keep it closed until I get back to the aid station, and I can just like unload my trash. So that gear worked out really well. Socks were the Stance socks, and they were fine. No problems with that. I love those socks. I used the Junk Brands headband, and I felt kind of warm, you know, but it was a hot day, so I think I'm going to be warm. It stayed on, but you know, I don't know. I think I'm probably going to go with a hat. for the 50K. I tried, you know, it was my first marathon with longer hair, trying to run with it like up in a bun. And it's okay, but I just felt like after a while, like little wispies still got out even though I had a headband on. And so it just started to get a little bit annoying. So I think I'll probably just wear a hat. The one thing that did not work out perfectly for me was when I got in the shower afterwards, I found one spot of chafing, and that was right here, right underneath the kind of like the sternum, right at the end of the sternum where my heart rate monitor sits. So I was wearing the Sunto chest strap, and I didn't feel like it was chafing me at all. But when I went to take a shower, I felt like, you know, fire right here when the water hit. And so that chest strap had chafed me just a little bit. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna go with an armband. I don't really like to go with the armband heart rate monitors for when I'm getting super sweaty, just because I feel like it starts to slip. So I would like to keep wearing a chest monitor, but I'll have to say, I'll probably, again, one of those things where I bring both heart rate monitors and I'll make a decision at the last minute which one I really wanna wear. But yeah, it caused a little bit of chafing. Not a huge amount, but enough to be a little bit annoying. For the shoes that I wore, I picked the New Balance Fuel Cell TC version 1. The version 2 I think is coming out later this year, but and I think they just recently released a new color for the version 1. I have, I think, like the original color that came out. But I went with that one because I knew I was going to be running a low heart rate race for this one. And so I wasn't going to be running super fast. I was going to be out there for a long time. So I wanted something that was going to be a little bit softer underfoot. So I went with the Fuel Cell TC, and I think that was a really great choice for me. It has a nice wide platform as far as what you're landing on. So I felt like also as I got tired, it would, you know, kind of not stabilize me, but help me from getting too sloppy. So, and I felt like it did a good job there. So I felt like that was a really great choice for me. I won't be using that for the trail race. But any shoe that I might use for a trail race, I really wouldn't want to be out, you know, on a road marathon with. So, you know, I knew that was going to be a little bit different. But for this shoe, I think right around at like the 17-mile point, I remember like 17 and a half miles, I was like, ooh, my right foot starting to feel a little bit warm and hot. I hope this isn't going to be a problem. But after about like half a mile, by mile 18, I forgot all about it. And so the shoe worked out really well for me. I was really happy with how it performed. All right, so that's all the gear in the kit. Let's talk about heart rate and like about the race itself. And for that, let's switch over to the computer. So now we're taking a look at Polar Flow. I used the Polar Vantage V2 to be able to record all the data, and I have the Stride foot pod. So the pace and distance data and the power data is gonna be coming from the foot pod, and the heart rate is gonna be coming from the chest strap. So if we look at it, the average heart rate was 150 beats per minute, which is higher than I was hoping for. I was hoping to come in at 144, like exactly my like Maffetone number for the entire race. But it became pretty clear early on that that wasn't going to happen for the day. I thought maybe I just needed to get into a rhythm. Maybe if I unloaded some of the weight after eating a couple of gels and drinking some of the fluid, that things would be kind of feel easier. But I think just the weight of the pack and the humidity of the day made it real hard for me to kind of stay at low heart rate. I suppose I could have been much more disciplined and like run 9-minute 30-second miles instead of 8-minute 45-second miles like I was in the beginning, and just been super disciplined about it. But I just think I was so excited to be in a race that I just didn't have the patience for it. I mean, it was about a mental battle constantly throughout the whole thing, saying like, well, maybe at the half marathon mark, I could pick it up a little bit. I won't run like I won't try to run like a half marathon PR by any means, but maybe I can run faster. So like every like couple of Ks, I was just like, maybe now. Maybe now. I feel like I've made a good effort. I've made my point that you can run a long time on low heart rate, you know, but I wanted to make this like a training effort and see, well, like, you know, like how easy or not easy is it for me to run, you know, like if I'm using low heart rate effort level for a 50K, is that going to be the right level or not? So I wanted to like really stick to it. And for the most part, I think I did. If we look at kind of like the heart rate much closer, like in full screen, it's still kind of hard to see the trend. Actually, I think I feel like I could see the trend easier on Strava. But the other way that you could see it really well is if we just look at the individual laps, like mile by mile, and we're looking at the average heart rate over here. We could see like, so each mile I'm in like the, you know, solidly towards like the high 8s. So just shy of 9 for a lot of these miles, but I'm in the 140s, right? So 146, 142, 142, 144. Feeling, you know, right about at where I want to be. For the first 4 miles, that's about when I had the first gel. My goal for the fueling strategy was to drink however much I wanted to, as I needed to, and then a gel every half hour, just to kind of get used to that rhythm of eating. And then for the most part, you know, I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm just cruising along, having fun in this race, taking in the scenery, running around 144 to 146 beats per minute on average for the miles, and coming in at about 8 minutes 40 seconds per mile for a lot of them. Some of them are faster. Mile 7's a little faster. Mile 8, the heart rate's a little bit higher. Time's still a little bit faster. Mile 9, I got a little bit hot, 8 minutes 16 seconds per mile and 148 beats per minute. And I think that kind of like set off the chain, I guess, you know, because after that, I just had a real hard time getting the heart rate back down low. So I'm at 149, 151, 147, 151. So now I'm in just like in the 150s. And I feel like once I'm at this like 11 mile mark, I'm just having a hard time even staying under 150. And you know, I made an attempt at mile 16 to really reset and say like, all right, I'm just going to run real slow, one super slow mile. That'll reset everything. And then I can just do Maffetone miles or low heart rate miles the rest of the way in. It worked for like a mile. And then after that, by mile 18, I'm back in the 150s again. And at this point, I've kind of given up. I'm like, I'm ready for this race to be done. I've been out here. By mile 20, I've been out there for 3 hours. So I'm like, this is a long time. You know, at this point, like how much benefit the workout is, I'm not sure. Although like, you know, ultra training is like a weird new territory for me. So maybe it's great for me, maybe it's not. But like everything I know from marathon training is kind of like runs longer than 3 hours. You know, the benefits start to get outweighed by the potential harms. So I'm getting a little bit nervous about that, about how long I've been out and how hot it is. So, you know, I'm not really paying as much attention to the heart rate, but you know, I'm doing a decent job, I guess. 152s, 153s. The miles now are in the 9, you know, solidly in the 9 minutes, 9:10 about per mile. And then, you know, they start getting a lot higher as I'm now out of the park and then back onto like frontage roads, you know, concrete, you know, just like open air, no sun cover. And I just feel like I'm, you know, getting beat down on by the elements. And so it just feels a lot hotter all of a sudden. And, you know, I'm just seeing a lot more people suddenly. And so I'm getting excited about like picking people off. Like, even though I wasn't racing or like trying to race, you know, even towards the end, the heart rate gets up a little bit higher, but you know, I feel like a pretty good job of staying in like the low 9s. That 26th mile, 9 minutes, 30 seconds. So, you know, there was a lot of hills at the end of this course. I mean, relatively speaking, for someone that usually runs on everything super flat. So it got a little bit hilly towards the end and it was all uphill. So it was like kind of super annoying to have to deal with that. So the heart rate got a little bit high towards the end too. But I feel like as far as, you know, trying to get in a nice, easy workout and see and remind myself what it's like to be out there for 4 hours, I feel like I did that pretty successfully. And I felt great afterwards. Like I was a little bit tired, but like I was concerned, like, you know, is my form going to get really sloppy? Am I going to like make myself susceptible to like an overuse injury type of thing? So I did spend a lot of time thinking about like making sure I'm still, even if I'm moving my feet very slowly, making sure that at least the mechanics are good. So like structurally I'm sound with each step. So that's kind of what I tried to keep myself occupied with as I was going through some of the later miles. And I feel like I did a good job on that. I'm feeling strong. I was able to, you know, walk home just fine, drive home just fine, and hang out with the family, do normal kind of like Sunday afternoon stuff. I was tired. I was definitely a little bit wiped out, but like, you know, it wasn't like a situation normally like after a marathon where I'm just like useless for the rest of the day. So I felt like the amount of energy I put into it was like the right level of energy. I didn't want to like completely pour myself out into this race. I wanted to save that for the 50K that's coming up in just less than 2 weeks now. So in 2 weekends, I'll be running that 50K. I feel like I figured out a lot of stuff for this race based on, you know, trying to run it at low heart rate, seeing like how much does like the heart rate really creep up and what does that feel like, you know, to be at kind of like slightly above low heart rate level for an extended period. So it was eye-opening, and I think ultimately it's going to helped me in a crucial way in understanding like just how disciplined do I need to be at the beginning stages of a 50K with a lot of climbing in order to be able to successfully finish it. So like, you know, it was a really good, like, bringing me back down to earth in terms of like, what am I really capable of or not? So that was, I think, really valuable information. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, or if I saw you on the race, let me know in the comments down below. It was so good to see so many people. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?